Hello, my name is Neelakantan. I wrote this book, South versus North. And given we just had an election in Karnataka, I thought I'd read from a section titled First Past the Post, Good for Horses, Bad for Democracy. The first layer of democracy in India is the most egregious example of transmission loss. MPs represent constituencies that may have up to a couple of million voters. They are elected using a first past the post system in multi-cornered contests, where winners frequently get less than a third of all votes cast. In a constituency with over a million voters and four major contestants, it is frequently the case that the winner gets less than 300,000 votes. This is a bad way to elect our representatives, even if we do assume that electing representatives is a desirable way to transmit the will of the people. Transmission is not likely to be efficient if two-thirds of voters in fact voted against the winning candidate. Since this happens on a nationwide scale across constituencies, it is particularly a poor way to represent the will of the people. For instance, in 2014, the Bharatiya Janata Party got about 31% of the popular vote and won 282 of the 543 parliamentary seats to form the government. That is, it won more than half the seats in parliament by winning less than a third of the vote. Its main opponent, the Congress party, won 19% of the popular vote and about 8% of all seats. In other words, FPTP not only picks winners in individual constituencies who weren't the choice of the majority voters, it also frequently overrepresents such winners and underrepresents losers in parliament. The basic flaw of FPTP is that the lack of proportionality between winners and losers is exacerbated in a large and diverse country with a multi-party democracy like India. Until recently, the Congress party, by virtue of being the largest party, had similarly enjoyed outsized representation in parliament compared to its actual vote share. The problem with the FPTP system reveal themselves in different ways in different democratic systems though. In the United States, for example, in the largely two-party decentralized election process, it ends up incentivizing partisan gerrymandering. That is, partisans who draw the boundaries of their constituencies draw them such that their party wins the maximum number of seats with the minimum number of votes and the minimum margin in each seat. The arithmetic reality of the FPTP system is that every additional vote polled after the winning vote adds no value while trying to maximize the number of representatives elected. In a two-party system, for example, winning 70% of the votes in a constituency is no different from winning 50.01% of the votes. From the perspective of the political party, those additional 20% votes in those constituencies are wasted if they could have been used elsewhere to win seats. Say, for example, a political party wins 100% of the vote in one constituency and loses by narrow margins while taking 49% of the vote in three neighboring constituencies. It would be better if it could somehow transfer at least 6% of its votes from the winning constituency to win the other three as well. Therefore, political consultants in America who help the two major parties determine where these constituency boundaries should be drawn spend enormous resources in determining the most advantageous method for their respective sides. They try to draw the boundaries in such a way that their own party wastes as little votes as possible while winning as many seats as possible. This idea of making sure the voters are diffused enough for a party to win many seats and not waste votes by pulling them all in a few constituencies is called cracking. The opposite action of ensuring that votes are sufficiently concentrated to ensure victory in a given constituency is called packing. No party wants its voters so diffused that it wins the popular vote but loses the majority of seats. Partisan consultants try to find an optimal balance between these two possibilities, cracking and packing, to ensure outsized victories for their party in terms of number of seats won. This redistricting process has now been elevated to an art and a science, so much so that opposition parties that win the popular vote often end up in the minority because the incumbents get to redistrict each state after the census data is made available every 10 years. In effect, this has meant that representatives choose their voters and not vice versa. The shape of constituencies in the United States is often as far removed from a circle, a natural compact unit, as possible owing to such gerrymandering. To stop this, a metric often suggested is the Polsby-Popper score, which measures the area of a constituency as a ratio of the area of a circle with the same perimeter. This tells us how dissimilar the constituency is from a circle. Heavily engineered boundaries will result in a very low score. While this geometric ratio is often not the best measure, it's a useful indicator. Americans have taken this rather obscure problem to egregious and outlandish limits, such as clustering disparate places that should be in 4 or 5 different constituencies into a single constituency. In India, partisans or political operatives do not draw boundaries. The Election Commission does that. Even then, some boundaries can raise eyebrows. The Manamadurai and Sulur assembly constituencies in Tamil Nadu are good examples. They'd get a very poor Paul P. Popper score. It's not clear how and why the Election Commission draws the constituency boundaries the way it does. But even without gerrymandering, this points to a deeper problem. The FPTP system is a winner-takes-all system that is non-proportional in its representation. Thank you.